think for me, confirmation is probably the head. And, 7th and 8th grade I see, and they go, why? Why? I mean, we spend those first few years in catechetical mode, but we have to give them the why of faith. So for me, growing up, it was mission trips. It was being involved in my youth ministry. It was my youth ministry who had a deep, I had a great relationship with him, my pastor. I had great mentors in my life who not just told me about faith, but lived it and walked with me, as you said. For me, that's crucial. We have to get back to investing in one another. So when a kid gets baptized in the church, we as a parish promise to help raise them. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing as a community, as a parish. And so we need to take that to the next level when we're talking about learning about faith at catechesis. So for me.
Right. I think too, in that middle school time, especially, that is when they're really discovering who they are. They have more autonomy, more freedom. They desire that independence. So how does this faith thing fit into my life? Is it real? Right? Mm-hmm. It is. They're asking a lot of questions. And so to have that mentorship, I think, is important. That also played a really huge role in my life, to be involved in my youth group, to see my pastor was really important to me, and him living out his faith and the people he had that helped him, being able to encounter Jesus personally, right? Having those opportunities to make a retreat, to really be there and see my other peers. They're the ones who invited me on this retreat, my friends, right? And so to see them live their faith, to know that they wanted to share that with me was really powerful. And then even further than through high school and college, to really have those people walk with me on that journey was probably the most powerful, right? That's what kept me in the faith.
Yeah. And I think that when we've been discussing and looking about it, and more than anything, praying about how do we respond to the people in the diocese that have asked us to look at this? How do we respond to Christ, who's asking us to look at this? And, all the great things I could point out in Scripture, right? Feed my sheep, the Great Commission, all of those things, that we are called to be disciples and go make disciples, right? And that's really what this ultimate change is here, is that we're trying to really answer the call of Christ in all of this. And not just for ourselves as people who work for the church or care about the church, but again, for everyone, for the world, and especially for the people of the Diocese of Erie. So there's probably people out there that are really annoyed with me, that are just can you please talk about what this change looks like? I'm bought in, I'm sold, right? I love Jesus, but can you tell me what this looks like? And so I think really to set it up, right, it's about this arc of experience. What are these kids experiencing, living through? How is Jesus trying to meet them in that? And so when we were, all of us were a part of this committee, there was a larger committee that was formed of DREs, of parents, of youth ministers throughout the diocese, and said, let's really talk about what our students are experiencing, our young people are experiencing, and how can we meet them in that? So from a very practical level, and then people who obviously knew about, the church and its wonders, and how can we really live that out? So I think through all our conversations, we came initially and we're like, well, let's just, talk about that confirmation year. And as we really unpack this, we're like, well, no, it's not just about that. It's not, I mean, as much as the sacrament, and it's amazing and great, and it gives us so many graces and strength along the way from the Spirit, but we need to set people up well for receiving that, right? We have to set our young people up well, and they can't go into that sacrament not knowing that they're loved. They need to know that they're loved by Christ, by their church, and that they belong here. And that's essential before that sacrament even, the oil hits their head, we would say, so to speak. And I think that that's why we're like, well, we need to look at our middle school students, that those are the years that the whys come, and we can't just wait till they enter high school to really be honing in on all of these things that we were talking about. And by things, I mean community and whatnot. And I think that expanded all of our minds on these subcommittees to say, it's not just about learning. Learning is very important. Knowing our faith intellectually is very important, but also knowing in our hearts. And I think that really this change too is faith formation, that it's about being formed in the faith. And being formed is my whole self, everything I'm bringing to the table. you know? And so that's another reason that when you all were talking about your youth groups and your mission trips and that mentoring, that wasn't, you know, intellectual. That was really being formed in the heart. And that we wanted to move forward with something that both formed us in our minds and in our hearts
Right.
and oriented us toward Jesus.
Right.